Well, good day, good day, good day. I have had a very interesting week, and now that I'm kind of settled, I've done my morning cleaning, and I'm going to go ahead and go live. Let's see, let me turn this down a little bit. Because I wanted to explain to you all what occurred, what I experienced. I've dealt with my share of racism, and I wish none of us had a share of it. Okay. But it's not our reality. And even in what we perceive to be the most conducive neighborhoods, or neighborhoods that are just so diverse and seem to have such a understanding and appreciation for diversity, which is Still Creek, but still, we often find that some of them are living among us, right? And they are pretenders, really good actors and actresses. And I experienced that here in my neighborhood, the same neighborhood that some of you have visited, and you know that it's really, really quite unusually friendly and unusually safe and unusually happy and positive and cooperative and diverse. And like when I say there's every nationality that lives in this complex, that's not an understatement. And it's very family oriented, even though it's mixed family types. You know, there's every type of family here. When I say the diversity reaches to the LGBT community, it's just very diverse. There's even diversity in those who are of Latin heritage, Latin Americans. There are those who are Mexican. There are those who are Puerto Rican. There are those who are Venezuelan. And I'm sure others that I've not yet fully been made aware of. But these are just individuals that I come in contact with when they have social events. The staff, in fact, the leasing office is completely diverse. It's been that way. I've been here going on 3 years, and I've not had one incident where I've had a problem with a neighbor, and especially a problem with a neighbor on the basis of racism or child molestation or anything like that. And some of you know that I have shared at events, and I've shared in this platform and my personal platform and other social media that I was molested when I was younger. I know what that feels like. I know how it is to cope with something like that. I know what it feels like to experience that, especially in a family, kind of what we've talked about, the Black generational kind of curse that you kind of keep these things private and you don't talk about it. But then where's my healing? Where's my justice? And, this awkward part of having to understand that it's someone who's my family and amongst my immediate family tree. So it's just a very interesting dynamic to have gone through myself, and then basically almost have gone through that this go round. And you know that I would have, and I made it very clear to the officers, we need to get this under control, because I will defend my son. Now, that's not how I explained it. And if they want to share it with you, they're more than welcome to. CMPD, they maintained great professionalism when I shared that I will definitely defend my son. And in other words I used, okay? So, and I just don't feel like going into that space right now. I'm not so much as being playful with it because there's nothing funny about the situation at all. But I'm trying to keep myself calm. And those of you who know me well know that I am very, very much so committed to my family, very much so committed to my immediate family. And I don't like bullies and racist Karens and racist people. That is a form of bullying. I don't like those things at all. They are one of my biggest pet peeves, neck and neck with unnecessary lies, just lying just because it's Tuesday or lying because it's Monday. So nonetheless, let me go ahead and get into it real quick. So, and I'm not going to be able to release all details because I imagine that at this point, and I'm not sure if they realized that I was a public figure prior to this incident or if they have since discovered that I am a public figure. So I would be mindful and expedient to not divulge everything and every measure that we are taking right now to control this situation and obtain evidence to use in court for my 50C, which is a civil no contact order. At this point, considering the vandalism to the door, the property, they can elect to move on charges of criminal charges of vandalism because this is not my apartment. Well, let me say this more specifically. I have a lease that allows me to have temporary possession of this apartment for that lease term. I do not own this apartment. So when they damage the door, the criminal offense is not only to me for harassment, but it is to the property owners for damage and destruction, vandalism, and likely we don't have recordings of them actually calling me a racial slur. So there will be some effort made to obtain substantial evidence that shows that it's racially motivated, and sometimes that can be difficult. And you know my stance, and I'm in law school, so I want to make sure that I'm handling all these things correctly. And not making any classic mistakes during this process so that justice can be served and individuals like this can either be put properly in prison where they need to be or otherwise properly punished. And of course that would be on public record because we do need, and I'm glad that Kamala Harris mentioned a national registry for rogue cops. I think that is brilliant, and we need to have a national registry, the same as we do for sex offenders. And of course, now there's a caveat because of course some sex offenders, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination, I am not justifying any behavior of any sex offender. But I understand that some sex offenders have actually ended up on that list or have been deemed a sex offender that weren't actually a sex offender. Some of our beautiful black men who have been under false complaints and then ended up on that list. So nonetheless, what I'm talking about, the people who validly appear on that list. We need to have a list like that for Karens. And someone please give me the name for the guys, because I'm not really sure if we've come up with that. But in this particular case, and it is public knowledge because all the criminal records and the civil records are public knowledge, so it is okay for me to divulge this. And they have made their actions very public against me here. So the person who is doing me harm is a neighbor who lives diagonally from me. They just moved in about a month ago. So you may obtain those records. I'm going to maintain some confidentiality with regards to their identification, only as it relates to the pending criminal case that I have against them. Right now, of course, the civil no contact order is basically handled administratively until they violate it. And then, of course, that becomes an actionable criminal offense. But nonetheless, okay, so basically, I saw that they moved in about a month and a half ago. I say a month and a half ago. And my son has been escalatedly wanting to go outside and play with some of the kids who have now been started to show up outside. And if you'll recall that one of the little girls, Caroline, was on one of my live feeds. So that's forever a record stamp of that, you know, and when this situation started. And basically, the little girl was outside playing, and some of my neighbors, we kind of get together, and they know my policy on masking or whatever, and they'll mask and we'll chit chat. They'll stand, you know, we'll keep their distance or whatever. And it was just a wonderful evening, wonderful weather, and we were just out, and I was allowing my son to, because he had come out, we had been scootering. You've probably seen those videos as well. And, well, no, I don't think I posted that video. I think I recorded it for Asa. It may be on his Facebook. But nonetheless, my neighbors kind of gave me the, you know, cosign, because they know how I am. I'm very, very private, even though I'm very public. And I do that intentionally because my private life, my home life is, you know, it's just like it is to you. When you go to work, that's your work life. And I know we have to have work in our home now, so it's a little bit of a, you know, encumbrance, if you will. But before the pandemic, and even now, you still have deserved privacy. You have the right to that. I mean, that's number one, that's constitutional, right? And so home is home. And my public life is, you know, public. And I don't mind if those kind of cross the, you know, those blurred lines or they become blurred sometimes. But for the most part, I like to keep them separate. So my neighbors, you know, just kind of gave me the, you know, the kind of simple cosign. They don't really know them, but they cosign that they have been living here for as long as I have, but they moved from another building into this building. And I was like, okay, all right. So then I felt a little more comfortable allowing my son to play with her, even though the little girl was not masking. So, and she's 6, and unfortunately we live in a world where my 10-year-old beautiful black son playing with a 6-year-old Caucasian cute little girl, it can be perceived in a very negative light by those who are racist. And those who don't, you know, those who say, I'm not racist, and still take issue with it. And then there's some of us beautiful black people that take issue with it for our own, you know, reasons. And I, you know, generally agree with them, but I'm trying to, you know, live open-minded, but that doesn't mean that I'm stupid, nor am I closing my eyes to the obvious. So even though I'm not going to immediately go with the thought that, oh, she's going to be a problem because she's, you know, she's a little white girl. And, you know, no, I'm just going to have that mental file here because my son he's becoming older. And this is around the time where when racists try to do things to young teenage boys or boys that they would demonize and perceive and kind of categorize as men, you know, rationally thinking men who would do all these evil things intentionally with a malignant heart. No, you're not going to do that. No, we're not. So basically, I had that file, you know, it's in the file, and I said, okay, let me at least kind of, meet her parents. And, I'm that mom. Let me meet her parents and let them know that, now we share different values, possibly, because I noticed that your daughter's not masking, but she has asked to play with my son, and my son is part of the vulnerable community. And for us, it is not safe for him to play with other children who are not masking. That, for your rational mind, even where people are like, I don't want a mask, I don't want my children to mask. Someone with a rational mind, when another parent, a peer, we're parents, that you got this life, right? They would normally say, oh, you know what? Absolutely. We do have masks for certain, specific situations, like we're in the store. I don't have them wear it. I don't have her wear it. When we're at home, because it's not really necessary. Whatever their excuse or their reason would be, okay, fine. But that person would say, wait, no, but I respect the fact that you've come to me parent to parent and you've told me that your son is part of the vulnerable community, and that unfortunately and fortunately, in order to play with my son, here's the beauty of it. They never have to play with my son, and that's unfortunate for my son in some regards. But I'm working with him so that he understands that, not to feel desperate for friends right now, not to feel that he is somehow fatally different. No, none of that. Other people need to be masking because, as you've heard me say over and over again, we are all part of the vulnerable community. However, when I use that term, you've heard me do this before, like when I've told you, like at public speaking events, I'll use certain terms to signify my stance on certain topics, right? So, or to signify quickly so that knowing that what is most well received as meaning that thing that I'm trying to communicate, then I just say that thing. Much like when I say I'm an environmental scientist. I'm not an environmental scientist. I'm a wetland scientist, more specifically, okay? And then it gets even more specific, there under. But when I say I'm an environmental scientist, that most communicates, oh, she's pro-environment. You see what I'm saying? So then I say, oh, my son is part of the vulnerable community. So then your rational mind says, oh, okay, my bad. We will mask. Or I will just, tell my daughter that since we don't have any masks, she can't play with, your son today, but we will get some masks so they can play. All right, cool. What up, yo? That's how it's supposed to go. In a perfect world, right? Okay. So it did seem to go that way. Ironically enough, I introduced myself. Who I met initially was the father. And this is those are the individuals who have begun to harass me and my son now. And I feel like this was very concerted. You'll see why. Okay, so very quickly, and I don't want to take a whole bunch of time, but it has been a lot that has transpired. And again, I don't want to divulge everything because I want to make sure that we are very meticulous in court to ensure not only the civil no contact order, but criminal charges for each of the actionable criminal charges for the acts that they have committed against me and my son, okay? So number one, here we go. Here's the progression. And we're talking about, it's almost classic. It's like we're watching a movie of a situation like this. That's how it arose. And that's how it got, climactic, with a C. Right. Okay, so they were playing outside. I gave Asa an hour. I said, then you need to come inside because he hadn't finished his work for that day, for his schoolwork. And she seemed very persistent that day. So she knocked, and I'm talking about the little girl. She knocked, and I said, well, maybe she's just, she's just eager. She just, she's overzealous. She's just eager, even though there was another file. So I've got 2 files pulled and sitting in the ready folder, like, things to take note of. I'm like, okay, I know our kids, don't always reflect what we teach them. But sometimes our kids do reflect what we teach them unintentionally. You get what I'm saying? Did you get what I just said? Okay. So very persistent, knocked on the door. I said, well, he's in school. Da, 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 da. Okay. So like I said, then I said, well, later on today, she knocked on the door again before the time frame that I told her that, okay, he can't come out right now. And I figured, of course, she's not really telling time. In her mind, it's like, oh, it must be time. Let me go check. So I did. I just, again, file right there. So they played the first time. She came with her mask. Then the next day, so they play well. She goes home. I mean, of course, they're playing outside. I call Asa in, done. Next day, here she comes again, knocking on the door. Same time in the morning. I said, well, okay, so this means I had already established at this point, I said, I need to talk with her father that I met. And I need to say, hey, I don't know your daughter's school schedule. But my son's school schedule, we are very punctual, and I ensure his rigor. So he's not permitted to play or do fun things until he's done with his work. That's kind of the norm for parents across the board. Okay, just parents who even care a little bit, that's how I go. Okay, parents who care a lot, you ain't doing nothing until you finish your work, right? Okay, so, and I'm that parent, okay? You're not, no friend. You need to get your work done first. Okay, so, but I'm not gonna leave out right now because my son, I believe he was even taking an assessment. So I'm like, are they not taking assessments? And I kind of remembered she's in a different, grade, first grade. So I'm like, I don't know. So I just, again, little mental file, let it go. Okay. Do you know she came knocking again around noon? I said, no. Okay. All right. This is not good. I said, okay. So I put that file right on my desk at that point, on my mental desk. That boom, I got to put that in the front. So I got to do this afternoon. I need to speak with Father. So evidently, Father already knew, which normally makes sense. Don't I tell y'all, when you find yourself in a situation, please understand that the circumstances of that situation are generally not brand new. There's been some type of signs of the behavior, or it's happened before, okay? It's usually not completely new. Okay, so basically, after he was out of school, he was like, okay, can I go out now? I said, absolutely. I said, but I'm going to go over here while y'all are, while you two go play or whatever, and I'm going to just, speak with her father. And so I knocked on the door, and I was pretty clear, and I remained, very cheerleader, very nice, yet firm. And he was going out to walk his dog, and as I was walking away, he continued to talk. I maintained my distance from his door, and when I got to my door, he maintained distance from my door. He didn't have on a mask, mind you, okay? And I spoke to him from my threshold, because he then wanted to kind of go into detail about the fact that they have been working on her manners and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, so this is something that he's not, again, see, it's not new. Her behavior, her conduct, that's not new. It's not something that just arose. This is a pattern. She's got a pattern, okay? And where does she get this pattern from? You know what I mean? Because at some point, she's had to have, based on the repetitive and the what's the word I'm looking for? Pretty much like you're acting in a way that most adults would not would not concur. And they would definitely show, disdain for that type of behavior. You can't just be going and knocking on people's door, repetitively, like you can't do that. And that crosses all nationalities, all ethnic backgrounds. You can't be just going up to somebody. I'm just going to knock on their door all day long, and I'm going to believe that this is going to go well. Anyway, so fast forward, we get to Saturday. So this is over the course of 4 days. So on Saturday, of course, it was not a school day, and I had explained that on a school day, after 2:30 is when Asa can begin to play, or when he's out of school and finishes work. So if it's 2:30, class has been dismissed, he hasn't finished his work, he has to finish his work, and then he can come out. Okay. So that's been well established with her father and this little girl. Okay. On Saturday, she comes a knocking again. And at this point, I knew that I didn't want to go out. Normally, we go and we travel on Saturdays. We go get out of the house because we're normally, for the most part, in the house all throughout the week. And so that's our time to go and, just woosah, because of everything that's going on. And I was not feeling particularly excited about doing that. I didn't want to be out in the world because of the news and more cases of COVID at places where they have either completely disregarded the governor's order, or they've had permission, quote unquote, through the governor's order to open and add, and accommodate more capacity or whatever, and it has basically failed miserably because people contracted COVID. So I was like, okay, Mom, I'm just going to stay at the house, but I want you to come through because I just want to have like family day. I just want to watch movies and stuff like that, and I'm going to cook. So she was here to witness the entire thing, and I think that was intended. I think even though I hate the saying, there are no coincidences, and there's always a reason, to everything. Everything happens for a reason. I don't really like those sayings, but there's some truth in it. Great truth in it. So nonetheless, call my mom over, and she's over there, and she's like, well, who is that knocking on the door? Because she already know how we roll. Like, we were super private. I said, well, it's a little girl. I've been trying to let Asa out, and I already knew my mom's stance. Like, we're not doing that, not with the grandbaby. And I said, well, I did ask them to mask, and she is masking. I said, she's so cute. I said, they seem to get along very well. They have a good time. So, I'm trying to be flexible, just a little flexible. Not to my son's demise, and not to mine, and not to my mom's, but just trying, because I understand my son wants to play with kids. Okay. Fast forward. So I told her, well, he can't come out just yet. He's getting ready. And we actually had a late breakfast that day. I said, but he will be coming out. Okay. So you don't have to come back. He will come and he will knock on your door. I'll allow him to do that. I'll look out the door, and, he will be outside today. So, that happened. Okay. And what I normally do, cause I'm a big cornball, I'm a big, I came up in a family that my great aunt, who I also called my grandmother, she was the candy lady. And so I grew up in the wonderful childhood having those type of experiences like a lot of us remember, where we could we had the entire neighborhood as our exploration fun, right? And then we could come back and get candy from, my grandma, my Aunt Zed, and it was just wonderful. So I am that parent, that person in the neighborhood who does that now. And so I have a table over there. You see that table right over there? I bought it for that purpose. I sit out goodies for the kids, and they're individually wrapped. I'm very mindful about safety and things like that, so they can take them home. And if their parents need to inspect them, then, so be it, because it seemed like even more kids were coming out. And I was like, okay, this is all right. And some of the other kids, they had on their masks, and some of them didn't. And I told them, well, we will have to curb this unless you all have on masks. If you have on masks, kind of like if you have on masks, you may get some treats. If you don't have on masks, you can't get any treats. So that kind of, that worked fairly well. All right, so son's out playing. the other kids disperse, and it's just the little girl and my son. And that kind of, again, mental foul. So I'm like, okay. And I didn't see the other little kids anymore. And even maintenance had seen them because I'm cool, with everybody here. So I was chit-chatting with maintenance or whatever. And they know how I roll as a parent. I'm a good parent. I'm actually an exceptional parent. And I'm very, very watchful about my baby. So I called out to him later on. It was about, 40 minutes later, because by this time, it's about lunchtime. And I said, hey, so you want hot dogs? Said, oh, yeah, I want hot dogs. Okay. And she was like, I want a hot dog. I said, okay, well, my policy is the same thing for my son. The same expectations I have for other people around my son, I observe and I respect those to others. So my son has food allergies. You all are well aware of at least the fact that there may be an existence of food allergies. Some of you are expressly aware that my son has food allergies. And I say the ones who you may think of that because you've seen the Charlotte Observer the Charlotte Observer's article depicting me as some type of food Nazi, and they've used those terms. It's not my own term. Some type of evil parent that is taking away from all the resources available to all the students because my son has a 504 plan. They don't do anything that costs any additional money for my son. They didn't bring in a special nurse. They don't even have nurses on an everyday basis at the schools. I have been on call, and so has his doctors and other support staff at Levine Children's Hospital. So none of that exists. None of it's true. The only thing that is true is that my son has EOE, and with that he has food allergies, and his primary food allergen is dairy. Okay, it's really straightforward. It really is not a novel. It just isn't. Okay, so therefore, I'm not going to feed your child. I'm not going to give your child food. I'm very, number one, we have the snacks that are generally for us. They're non-dairy. They have no allergens. Those are the type of snacks that I would sit out. That's number one. And then it would be, okay, you need to take this home and ask your parent, right? Okay. And then number two, it's like, but wait. Then you jump into a whole new category when I'm preparing the food with my own hands, right? So I feel that it's respectful to then go say, oh, okay, I need to clear this with her father. So that's what I did. I wanted to clear. Oh yeah, she can have a hot dog. Okay, cool. All right. About 30 minutes later, I call out to them and I say, okay, hot dog. Well, I actually called out to my son, not to her. And I said, well, Asa, knowing that, she'd be right there. Asa, hot dogs are ready. Nothing. Now, some of you who know my son, when I hit the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 thing, he'll come running if we're in the store before I hit 4. Okay, so that's strange for my baby not to respond. So I was like, okay, well, I know that he showed me the area, the parking lot where they were doing the scooter, and I had walked over there once before. So I said, oh, they must be over there. He can hear me. That's where they're at. He can hear me. That's it. Okay, so, and even though my intuition was on boom, like it was just like completely high alert. And I said, no, calm down. Maybe this is just my fears. And that's okay. I can acknowledge them as a fear, even though I don't have irrational fears. This is a rational fear. I know that people kidnap kids. I know that, and I have unfortunately had to prep him as well. We had the conversation that as you're riding around, generally, most of the people here in this neighborhood, they have absolutely no problem with diversity. But someone may drive through this neighborhood, on their way to wherever. Maybe they got lost and had to turn around. And they may say, wait, I don't like these two together. And they may yell out something to you. They may, give you a nasty look. And I said, that's when you need to, get me. I'm listening out for you 24/7. We got the doors open. I can hear you scream. I can hear you yell for me. I'm on deck. I'm looking out ever so often to check and see if I still see and hear him moving about in the parking lot on the scooter. Yeah, I'm that mom, and I am proud to be that mom, and I shall forever be that mom, okay? So nonetheless, I said, okay, let me go on over. I'm going to go over there. I didn't see him over there. I said, no, okay, let me go this way. So I go this way, I check this way, and I've posted videos with me walking around the complex, so you kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about. It's just a quick little circumference. It's not it's like the equivalent of one lap around the any high school track, right? Pretty much. So I was like, okay, let me do the whole lap. And nobody. I said, okay, all right, okay. So I came back down the hall, and I hadn't noticed it before because I went the other direction to start to go to look for them because I thought that's where they were. And then I noticed that my son's scooter and the little girl's scooter that had actually been given to them by maintenance they were on the floor in front of, on the ground in front of this guy's apartment. Her father's apartment. So I said, no. Because we had a whole live conversation, and I made it very clear to him when we were having the conversation, and he was saying that, her manners this and da-da-da-da-da, they're working on it. And I said, yeah, but I just want you to know that I'm, at this time, I'm just not very comfortable with anyone coming or playing in the house. Because Caroline, but I had disclosed her name once before, so it'll be all right. I have not given her last name, and nor do I actually have confirmation of what her last name is, because I don't have confirmation of who the woman is. I was able to identify the man by public record search, but I was not able to identify the woman. And I have reason to believe that it may not be her mom, just based on certain things that we've seen. But nonetheless, I made it very clear. Well, the little girl wanted to come into our home to play. And I explained that I could not maintain good sanitation with her in my home like that. And when at one point, during this process, she had actually kind of forced her way in because the door was open, my son was opening the door, and she just kind of, how some kids are real quick, and she just kind of came in, and she didn't have her mask all the way up. It was an absolute, I was like, oh, it freaked me out. And I was like, no, you have to go back outside. You have to go back outside, sweetie. And so basically, this conversation was very thorough that I had with him. My son shall not be in your house. I am not okay with it. But I said it in a very, very firm and a very nice way. And if I said it in an ugly way, it would have been okay, because that's my preference. This is my child. I don't own him, but I am his mother. And because I am a good mother, if I was a bad mother and suggesting something bad that was not, to his benefit, then that's a whole different story. This is something that is for his benefit. I see you all walking around with no mask on a regular basis, interacting with people with no mask on a regular basis. So that means that you can't interact with us on a regular basis without a mask, because I don't know who all you're interacting with outside of even your apartment. And I don't know who has had, contact with someone else. It's like the issue of sexually transmitted diseases. The same thing. You should be mindful about who you are sleeping with, and you should be mindful to wear, a condom and protect yourself. This is the exact same principle here. So it was very clear to him. Now, it's hard to say when you look at someone how their personality is going to be over time. That's the crazy thing. We go through that every day. We meet people and we think they're just absolutely wonderful. We may have, sometimes the red flags don't start to show until maybe a little later, because you need more interaction with people, and then their truest self starts to come out, right? So initially I would have said, oh, okay, he's a happy-go-lucky guy. They have a cool Halloween display on their on their balcony and stuff. So I was like, okay, this is okay. They're corny and loving parents like me, you know. So I was like, okay, that maybe this will work out, except for this, you know, this one masking issue. But since I brought it up and the father is having her mask, then maybe we're all right. Okay. So my scooters are at the door, right? My son's scooter, I misspoke there. I said my scooters, you know what I mean. So my son's scooter and the other scooter. And I'm like, I said, no. Now, mind you, my mom is still in there in my apartment. Remember, she's at my home the entire time. So I knock on the door and I'm breathing. I say, no, if he's in there, we're not going to think the worst. We're going to breathe this through. Now, I don't know too many people who would allow a child into their house without that parent's permission. Maybe that's just my upbringing. And I'm being very facetious right now because I know that to be generally every decent parent has that standard. They're not going to allow their child into someone's house if they don't know the people very well. Sometimes they don't even allow their children into houses with people they know well because they know them well. You get it? And it's a pandemic. So, you know, the standards are going to be a little more stricter, if not a lot more stricter because of, you know, the potential consequences of doing that. You know, being careless about whose company you're keeping. So I said, no, it's got to be a good explanation. Just let's go. Maybe they around the corner, they walking, who knows? If he answers and he says they're not there, I'll say, well, can you help me? Because I can't say, I don't know where they're at. I don't, you know, like, let's, you know. I knock on the door again. I knock on the door 3 times over the course of about, I say 10 minutes. Because I'm standing there and I'm trying to get my mind in the right place. And, you know, but everything in me is telling me my son is in there. And I'm like, okay, I want to break this door down. And then right at that moment, ironically enough, my mom opens the door and she looks out and she's like, where's Asa? And I point and I say, I think in here. And because we're already like in military mode, my mom was a military wife, I was a military brat. And they were very, very big about raising me to learn how to defend myself, self-defense. My dad was very highly into martial arts. So am I. So that to that scope of art form is being aware of your surroundings. So that has always been huge. So, and also being able to communicate with one another and kind of in emergent situations without being conspicuous. So I pointed and I gave her the motion that what I was going to do is move away from the peephole. I'm going to move far away from the peephole. And then I wanted her to continue to keep her eyes so that just in case while I was walking away, like I could walk away backwards or whatever, but you know, just I wanted her to see so we could see it together, you know, because I'm the type of person that I'm like the equalizer. I need permission to kick your ass first. I need permission. I need to know, just like you're good martial artist, I need to know that this is a valid, is this what we're doing? Is this what you're choosing to do? Because, friend, I'm going to defend my son and I'm going to defend myself and I'm going to defend my mom. And that would be lawfully so, okay? So, and this is where I'm going to try not to get teary-eyed because it has been giving me the worst anxiety. Because, again, I am someone who has experienced molestation in my childhood, and I will not allow it to happen to my son. And I know that there are going to be situations that will be beyond my control, but I'd be damned if it happens across the hall from where I live. Not even a minute later, as if they were, or he were looking out of his peephole to make sure the coast was clear. Me and my mother observed him push my son out of his door. The little girl came running after. The dog came running out. He grabbed the dog. All the while I'm like, are you serious? And I'm moving toward him. So I've got about, I guess, I would say like 200 feet to go. So, but I move fast. So I'm like, whew. He goes straight in. He does not respond. He doesn't say, my bad. He doesn't say, nothing. He gives no explanation, people. He still, to this day, has given no explanation, none whatsoever. And my son is the type of person that has already been mistreated, as you've if you've read the articles with a rational mind that have been reported by the Charlotte Observer, then you'll know that clearly my son has been discriminated against at CMS schools, right? And you know that he's been mistreated at schools, and his 504 plan has been violated willfully, maliciously at school, right? And some of it was racially motivated at a particular school. And you're well aware of that as well, because there was a 2-week period when, what was his name? Oh gosh, Hager, the chief of police for the CMS PD, a principal at Asa's last school, reported that she felt I was a threat. And Chief Hager said, we don't perceive you as a threat. And we're investigating, the situation with her, because that basically is a false complaint. And it's racially motivated. And there's still that matter that still persists, that's still pending for resolution. And my son has been since moved from that school for these reasons. But, okay, so we go back, right? So no explanation, no, he doesn't come back out. Then I look down, I see, because at this point I'm in my son's company, right? I'm right here in his face. The little girl is still standing there, and I'm thinking to myself, control your mind. Don't cuss this little girl out, because at the end of the ultimate issue here is parent, not 6-year-old child, because she's learning this from them. Right? So I'm like, okay, control your mind, focus on this baby, my baby. And I said, now, I look down and I see he don't even have on his fucking shoes. Like, okay, so I'm really trying to pull it together. I'm really trying not to knock this door down and beat his ass. Okay? And I'm like, okay, there's got to be maybe a rational explanation. You keep it together. You use your training from when you were a federal ranger. You use your training from your academia of behavioral psychology. You use your training from martial arts to keep your calm until you perceive a real threat. You use your training, and I did. And I was like, now, Asa, you don't even, I'm like, where are your shoes? I don't know. You don't know. He looks at Caroline, and it's the weirdest look. And I'm like, you don't know where his shoes are? I don't know. Ooh. I said, Asa, get in the house, and I want you to take all that off, all of your clothes off. I need to make sure you're okay, examine you, and then we need to have a discussion. You need to get in the bathtub now, because I don't know if you've been exposed to COVID. Mind you, when he came out, he did not have on a mask. Caroline did not have on her mask anymore. It was so gut-wrenching. I have only one child, and we know we can't, quote-unquote, replace any child. And in my particular situation, I can't have any more children. And I'm not saying that makes it somehow, like my story is so much more, emotionally valid than a parent who has 2 children and loses one and still has one left. That we're not doing that here. I'm just telling you how I am processing information right now. Okay. And basically, Asa, and this to connect that thought as it relates to bringing in the CMS and the things that he's dealt with on CMS's campus, he's gotten to the point, and this is classic psychology, where he won't tell you information in real time. And we say that he says it out of time. In fact, we have that in his 504 accommodations, that he won't share information in real time. You'll get it over time because of the anxiety he has. So I'm knowing this already and knowing the things that I've heard him incrementally share over time and how I can't protect him in real time because I don't know what's going on. And I can't just be going around like a crazy woman, because then I will end up in jail unnecessarily, and then I won't be able to protect him. And he has. And again, I cannot divulge all of the information because there is a pending criminal case and a criminal investigation. I'm actually waiting on the police officers now because there needs to be a report taken for the vandalism that they did to the door, which I posted as a preface to this post. And you can see, I wasn't sure if it was just putty or if it was cement, and if their intent was to put something that would dry hard, so it would prevent the key from going in at all. And my suspicions were correct. Basically, the key I left just seated, and I sprayed it with sanitizer, and I left it at the door. The alcohol will not activate that substance to turn hard. But this morning I checked it with some cardboard and it was rock solid. So clearly their intentions were to put something in the door to prevent being able to use the door to turn the key and get inside, period. And it's a smart lock. There's smart locks here. So that's going to cost, I would imagine, a lot to the property. And now, again, as I've stated, in the beginning, that this is vandalism to the property, and that's a criminal charge, and it would be a breach of their lease. And then racially motivated, they could very validly be evicted on that basis alone. Okay. So, goodness. So basically, I went and I said, no, focus. And I'm in here, and I'm going to tell you admittedly. So my mom, she's like, oh, hell, because she knows if it does get to the point where I need to defend myself, I'm apt. Let's just say that. We know that in a world of circumstance and all kinds of things, and everybody has skill sets, yeah, there may be a fight I can't win, but I guarantee you're going to know I was there. You're going to know I was there. It ain't going to be no easy win. That's for sure. It's going to be a process. It's going to be a whole process. And my mom is very well aware of my strength because I've had to defend myself against people, throughout my life. I had a lot of instances, but I've had to do so. And then she also knows this because of my, my background with the National Park Service. But nonetheless, she's freaking out, but she's trying to stay calm because she's like, we both can't be on hype level. Somebody got to remain calm. I'm completely livid. I'm cussing. I am aces in the shower. I'm like, if he touched my son. And she was like, okay, we gotta bring it in. And I'm like, well, this has to be on record. So I need to call the officers because this needs to be on record. Because it's his, we've got a legal breach at this point. Okay. And so she was in agreement. Of course, I fussed at Asa, like, Asa, you cannot do this. I don't know what you're thinking. But Mom, and I knew that was also not going to help him with telling me what I needed to hear in real time. And it didn't, because he was overly anxious, like he had done something wrong. So he's trying to figure out if I say something, I'm going to be in trouble with Mom. And I had already set the rules that you can't go in that house. If I find out that you've gone in the house, you lose your iPad for a month. He knew these things. So I wasn't sure how much of it was voluntarily that he went into the house and how much of it was not. You get it? So fast forward, and to just round this out, basically, the officers came and they asked my son questions. We were able to determine that it did not appear that he had been molested or touched, but Asa did reveal that again, some of the stuff I can't divulge until I want to make sure that it is on court. It's already in the affidavit. If you want to look up the file on your own, you're more than welcome. But for me to disclose it publicly like this, that I could be frowned upon. This behavior could be frowned upon in the court of law if I divulge too many details, right? Okay, so basically, let's say that we have enough reason to believe that the guy was going to attempt something, okay? Okay. So the officers, I explained to them, I know that I am not calm enough to stand there with you when you tell them that they need to leave me alone. I know I'm not right now. I'm going to start out professional, and then there's going to be a wave of rage that's going to come over me. And so I'm just going to stand at my door, and I think it's expedient if I'll just stand by and we'll listen, and that'll be sufficient for me. Because at the end of the day, unless the officers see it, some of you are aware of this, some of you are not legally. Unless the officers see it, they can't arrest them on site immediately, right? And especially if my son is not saying, he's not revealing anything that actually happened. Because sometimes, and I hate this part of law, and I know a lot of us do as well, there is not an attempt for every type of crime that's recognized. So there can be an attempted robbery or an attempted murder, attempted assault. These are, they're so gray areas in the court of law that, you have to have an act that is actually completed, right? Which is kind of sick because you don't want your child to be molested. So but this is somebody we need to know, because then they could, feign that, all that evidence is just circumstantial. It doesn't mean that I was going to definitely molest your son, blah, 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 right? Okay. All right. But remember, I'm a beast cognitively. So, and that lends very well to providing probative evidence. Okay. So, two officers tell them to leave us alone. Leave us alone. Okay, next day, Sunday. Okay, little girl comes knocking on the door. I know some of y'all are like, are you serious? I am dead ass serious. And the funny thing is that we were hanging out. My mom, she had to go to work, and it was, I say, around 10:30, and she was, and some of you know my mom. She's going to be active for her entire life, and she was like, "Well, they told me they didn't really need me, so I'm just gonna let's go hang out." So I was like, "Sure, come on. We didn't go out yesterday. I could use a break, get out of the house because of everything we dealt with. Let's just go have fun somewhere." And normally our fun is very corny. So that means that we're just going to go like to the Goodwills, or, go do some light shopping, or, just go walk around where it's, everybody's masking and it feels safe, just good old family stuff like that, right? Go through the drive-thru, get a donut from Krispy Kreme, get my son something fun to eat from Popeyes. That's it. That's how we roll. And, so she was at my apartment when the little girl knocked, and she said, "Are you?" And ironically, not even an hour before that, so I had already thought, I said, I don't think they're going to immediately stop their behavior. I said, I'm hoping, but my intuition said they're not going to immediately stop this behavior. So I was mindful that something else may happen. And then so when my mom got here, I shared my feelings or whatever, and she was sharing hers. And I said, I just really feel like she's going to come back knocking. I do. I feel like this is not resolved. Okay? Because remember, he still hasn't given an explanation. He hasn't said anything. And at the very least, I am owed that. Because we just had a whole live adult conversation, or at least there was one adult in this conversation, one cognitively aware adult, one mentally competent adult in that conversation. Okay? And she heard the little girl knock. I said, you got to be kidding me. So I said, I'm not going to answer the door, because I answer the door, that's just going to keep the behavior going. So I'm going to ignore the knock. And I'm like, who allows their child to do this? And my mom was like, well, let's remind me to be rational. Yeah, we're going to be rational. Maybe the little girl is just doing it on her own at this point, because it hasn't really been explained to her what's going on, the ramifications of the behavior, whatever have you. Right? We're trying to be rational. And maybe they told her to come. Maybe they did tell her to come out. You can go out and play, but you need to leave them alone because you can't play with Asa. Okay? Do you know this little girl continues to knock for nearly an hour and a half repetitively, like every 10 minutes or so? And of course, I went ahead and called the CMPD, because clearly this is not, you see what I mean? Like, I need intercession. I'm not doing this. We're not doing it, because I'm not going to have a productive conversation with this man at all. And it is it's unintelligible for me to think that I'm going to communicate and articulate to the 6-year-old, you can't do what you're doing, if she's already been raised to believe that what she's doing is okay. Okay? All right. So, officer comes out. Do you know that, so I guess there was a period where she stopped knocking, right? So then the officer shows up. And do you know, while the officer was here, she began knocking again. And the officer, you know how sometimes if you let them in when they come to visit and you don't close your door all the way. So he didn't close the door all the way, but it was pretty much closed for the most part. Do you know that not only did she knock, she pushed her way in and hit the officer in the back as he was standing at my front door, as I'm explaining to him the situation that's going on. And he was like, wow, like, this is what, yes. Like, yo. So he goes over, and I said, what evidently has to happen? I said, the only flaw that I would say that I made the first time was not physically standing with the officers to ensure that they saw that I don't want you around me and my son anymore. Maybe, so for some people, they need it has to be like broken down, in different languages and including sign language. And then, some people need that, right? It's unfortunate, and it's not good, but some people need that. So I was like, okay, because I need you to understand, individuals who are apt in litigation, you don't want to go in court with them. It's not a good thing for you to go. None of us want to deal with court, including myself. But I guarantee you, because I'm the type of person, I'm going to try to resolve everything with you, between me and you, so that we don't ever have to go to court. So if you ever hear about me going to court, that's what I've shared with some of you. Some of you already know this, and this is how I roll. But some of you have been beguiled by the papers because they suggest that somehow I just go in and I'm filing a frivolous lawsuit. No. Look at the results of the lawsuits. Some of you have not done that. Look at the results of the lawsuits, and you'll say, or look at the history of, that is noted for the complaint, and you'll say, well, damn, shit, Tigress is nice. Because there's no way in hell I would have let all this happen before I would have gone to court. I would have gone to court after they did this. Some of you would have already taken out the TRO the day before. And I said, I don't want to have to be there in the pandemic. I thought about everything. I don't want my son to be even introduced to this nonsense. He's not revealing anything that is absolute evidence that this has occurred. Let me give it time, because he's going to tell me things out of time, and I will still have the opportunity, full opportunity, to file the criminal charges if need be, right? I'm just glad that it didn't happen. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be rational through this process. And again, some of y'all be like, damn, Tiger, because they got you out here posted up like you miss evil, like you lead with evil. I don't. I lead with love. That's who I am. I've always been, and I shall always be. I'm like the equalizer. I need permission. I need to know. I need to have I need a substantiation that I can punch you in your fucking mouth, and it's substantiated and it's valid. It's lawfully valid. If it's not lawfully valid, I'm trying to avoid it at all costs. Okay? Okay. All right. So he says he agrees. This is the officer. He's like, maybe, yeah, let's go one more time. And let's just, you stand beside me. I'm going to tell them this, that, and the third. Well, I was disappointed because this particular officer, and I'm not going to go into race, because that'll be a totally different conversation. But I was a little disappointed. I understood his disposition. So his disposition was even more nice than my own, because you have a threshold. We all have a threshold. So his threshold, since I guess being first introduced to it and explaining that he also has, little black sons and and his wife, just a number. We had a decent conversation, but his position was, let's use the turn the other cheek type of thing. And I'm like, I'm not really with you. I'm not with you, but considering everything, the goal will still be achieved to go over there and you talk to them and they'll see me and it'll be established on record. So I was okay with that. Then I was concerned because we got to the door and he was like, well, here, you stand on this side so they can't see you. Well, why? Because that was the whole purpose of me coming over here. I said, I don't think that's going to work because behavioral psychology has proven that individuals who are doing stuff like this, they are likely sociopathic. Yeah. Okay, so he was like, no, because this may hype it up. Let me say something to him first because this is my first time knocking on the door, and then I'll lead up, and then I'll bring you into the conversation. They actually open the door, answer the door, and when I say they, I then hear a woman. And I was already concerned because I was like, okay, why? And this is another thing I hadn't brought up, but I'll say this really quickly. This is another one of those files that I had, okay? I have a 10-year-old, rather tall, because remember, I'm rather tall. And his father is 6'2", so he's going to be tall, okay? This is a rather tall 10-year-old boy. And this is a rather short 6-year-old little girl. And generally, when the two would come together and want to play together, or more accurately, the little girl would seek to play with a much older boy because those are age gaps that are relatively, we consider significant. You know what I mean? Okay. It can happen. Kids with that age group, with that age difference, they can play well. And then it can also be the opposite, right? Okay. Because some 10-year-old boys have been raised or introduced to faster habits. And we all know what faster is, right? So we know all these things. We know all these perceptions, and some of them are realities. So I was like, why? And I even said it to my son, baby. So my mommy's concern also is that a mama hasn't come over to say, hey, I'm such and such. I understand you met my husband or my boyfriend, and I just wanted to come over and say hello and make sure that, that we met. And, I understand that my daughter likes playing with your son, so I just thought we should meet. That never happened. So that was one of those, and that was sitting on the desk the entire time, that file, that mental file. So nonetheless, I'm hearing a woman, and I'm like, dang, suspicions are accurate. Why is this? So I'm so confused now. So because I was like, maybe he's a single dad. I even thought, I swear to you, when they moved in, I was like, oh, this is what I originally thought. I was like, oh, he lives alone. I wonder if he lost his wife during COVID. And then I just let it go because, of course, I don't know their situation. It was just one of those kind of fleeting thoughts. And I was like, oh, so I've never seen a woman go that way or any of that stuff. So it was just especially strange. Just the whole thing, just especially strange. And I especially didn't know that they came from a different building in the same complex. Nonetheless, here's the end of it. Or not, well, it's not the end of it, of course. But basically, they invite him into their house to I guess, allow him to share whatever he needs to share. So I stand there and I'm definitely going to listen because I am rightfully where I'm at. I'm with the officer. The officer has asked and permitted me to accompany him and asked me to be there. So I'm listening. I stand right where I'm at. Because the whole goal of this is I need to hear that they hear that you say to them, you give them a lawful stance. Leave just the same way it works with trespassing. If you're somewhere and the people ask you to leave and you don't leave, they call the officers. When the officer says, are you willing to leave? Understand the nature of that question, because what they are doing is establishing a legal, probable cause. If you say no, they can arrest you on the site for trespassing. Get it? So that's what he's doing with them. Hey, are you willing to stop harassing them? If not, then he can move forward on, actions, right? And I can move forward on a TRO. Now, of course, it doesn't. The TRO doesn't require that step, just so you know. But for me, trying to be reasonable throughout this process, I wanted permission, quote unquote. All right. So they come out minutes later, and I've overheard them say things like, "She doesn't know me." Well, that's interesting because I don't know you either. Ain't that a coinky dang? Ain't that something? I don't know you either, lady, but my son was in your house. Okay? All right. Then I hear the guy say, she's lying. What am I lying about? I'm confused. I'm so confused right now. What am I lying about? What am I lying about? I haven't said that you molested him. I haven't said that. I haven't said anything except for the exact things that have been directly observed. And I didn't even observe it alone. It was observed not only by my mom, but it was also observed by the officer standing here as your little girl pushed the door open to a home of someone, basically, people she doesn't know. She only knows us to be playing together for the last 3 days. And mainly of that, she knows that I have mainly been saying, oh, he can't come out right now. Or reminding her that you need to go back to your house. He'll come out when he can play. That doesn't exactly say, oh, yes, 6-year-old, if you see the door somewhat open, push it open and come in. And not even at the time that when she pushed the door open, just so you're aware, she didn't even recognize the police officer as a rightful authority. She didn't have the respect for him that she should have. When normally, and that's part of this bias, this implicit bias that we talk about all the time, and this white privilege that we talk about all the time, us in Black America. If that had been my black son pushing the door in on someone else's apartment who happened to be white or Caucasian, and a white officer was standing there, or even a black officer, just an officer, period, and pushed the door to the point they hit the officer in the back, how do you think that situation would have gone? How do you think my son would have been perceived if the tables were, turned, if it was vice versa? Are you serious? Okay, so he finally comes out, and I'm standing there. And I'm like, wait, because the officer is acting like, oh, it's handled. No. I need to make sure that they know that you said, because there were some parts of this conversation y'all had in there that I couldn't hear. But what I heard was a problem because they are definitely confusing the facts. Okay. I don't know who she is. I don't even know she was in the apartment while my son was in there. And I need and deserve to know this information, because I need to have a full understanding of what to expect from you all, criminally or civilly, as you are being my neighbors. I need to know what I need to report. I need to know what I need to be aware of. I need to know what I need to be cautious of, okay? I am very rightfully entitled to all this information. And so, he concurred. I guess he realized that you're not dealing with a fool. I'm gonna be nice, and I hear you. Oh, I am that person. I'm gonna listen to your alternative way. You want to do it Buddha style? We can do it Buddha style. But if they acting like butt asses, then I can meet them where they at. Okay, I can meet them where they at. I tell you all the time. I can show you what you look like. I'm capable of showing you what you look like. Now, I want to maintain peaceful stance as well. But if you decide to take another stance, and I know that I know that the law allows for me to defend me and my son and my mother, I shall, if we perceive a real valid threat. Okay, so the guy steps out, the father. Demeanor is completely, now I'm realizing his smile, those guys, it's guys and women who can smile, and it looks, when you first meet them, you think it's this authentic, genuine smile, but they have a smile all the time, even like when they're evil and stuff, like that's just his disposition. I was like, oh, okay, so that's who you are. This is interesting. This is very interesting. So he was smiling, but you could tell this was the variation of smile, even though it was the same facial expression. It was, I'm evil. You just didn't realize it. Like, oh, okay. Got it. All right, got it. So the officer then tells him, because he then immediately goes into, you lied to the officers yesterday. I lied to them about what? And I said, and I looked at the officer and I said, that's exactly why I admit my flaw in the process the day before was I should have stood right beside the officers and made sure that I heard every word that came out of their mouth so I could go ahead and rebut and handle this and squash this immediately. And I said, this is exactly why it needs to be squashed now. And I interrupted his lie, his knowing lie. And I said, you know that I have let you know that my son is not welcome in your house. You don't even have on your mask now. You don't even have respect enough for yourself and your own family. I have made it very clear to you, and you know that full well. So at the very least, aside from any other suspicions of any type of criminal activity, he should not have been in your house, period. And I guess he realized that he wasn't dealing with a complete idiot at that point. Because unfortunately, for racist white people, they think they're dealing with an idiot regardless until it is completely shown otherwise. And even still, they probably still perceive me as, less than human in some regard, less cognitive in some regard because of the things that they've done. You would think it ends there. It doesn't, y'all. This is what you call, like I said, and I even said it to the officer, I said, this is sociopathic. But nonetheless, he asked him. So at this point, father hushed, because he hushed. He said nothing else. Hush. It's best for you to hush right now. That's the best disposition you can take right now, is hush. So the officer said, okay, now I need to hear you say, or basically, he didn't use those specific terms. He said, how did he say it specifically? He said, will you leave them alone? Will you tell your daughter to stop visiting their door? Will you advise your daughter that she is not allowed to play with her son? He went through a series of questions. And nope, yes, excuse me. No, I won't harass them. No, I won't, bother them. Yes, I will tell the daughter. Okay. It was quick. Okay. And it was more like 2 questions. So it was all there. Okay. It happened relatively quick. And my concern was after he answered that he would comply, He immediately went into, and that's also classic behavior for someone like this. He immediately went into, but I want the same thing from her. The officer looked at like dumbass, she don't want to have shit to do with you. So why would I ask her to stop bothering you? You're not understanding this, dumbass. You can see it all in his face. Like, are you serious? I'm asking this lady to get it to stay in Buddha, and you try to pull her out of Buddha stance right now. He didn't say anything else. It was absolutely hilarious. I looked at the officer. I said, "You can't be serious. You can't be serious." And then because I'm like, this guy is crazy. And the officer's looking at him. Do you know the guy went back into his house? He did not acknowledge us at all. Didn't acknowledge that the conversation was not over. Didn't acknowledge. He just went in his house, closed the door. I said, "See, this is what I'm talking about." I said, "I'm telling you, my field, the studies, they show he's sociopathic. This is going to persist. I don't believe that he got it just now." The officer said, "I'm pretty sure he did. Let's just give it the benefit of the doubt. And worst case scenario, you still have options to, file charges." I said, "I'm telling you, they didn't get it. They didn't get it. They didn't get it." Okay, so that was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. So we get ourselves together. We breathe it out, and I say, "Okay, yep, let's go ahead." And my mom made a decision. Let's go ahead and just leave for a little while. Let's go ahead and keep with our schedule. So we did. We left out. We come home around 8 o'clock. What do you think happened at 8 o'clock? Okay, we're pulling in, and I stopped by my mother's car because she's parked at my house. And she's going to let me get her spot or whatever. And so we're just chit-chatting. We're just family, not about anything specific, not about the situation at all. At this point, we had kind of come down, a lot. And we had got into the mode of having a good evening. And all of a sudden, I see a woman jumping up and down, I say about 900 feet away. She's standing in the breezeway. And you would know this area, and it would make sense if you knew the area where I live. And I was like, "Ma, why is that lady jumping up and down?" She said, "Oh, maybe it's one of your neighbors trying to get your attention." We're completely not even thinking about this lady, because remember, I've never met her. I didn't even see her when I was at the house. If you're following along, the only person that came out, and it was very odd because the father closed the door and left her inside. And I thought that's very interesting. And then my mother talked about, we suspect that she may be the kind of pop off. She may be the Karen. You know what I mean? So maybe that's why he's keeping her inside, because she more quickly will reveal their racist disposition. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, all right. And then I see the little girl skipping, or kind of, like kids do, kind of being playfully around her. And I said, "That's got to be the lady, Mama. Because that's Kara." Sorry. Damn. Because that's the little girl. And again, I've already said her name on another video, so it's okay. And I haven't revealed her, her complete identity or whatever. But nonetheless, I'm like, what in the hell? Do you know, all of a sudden, she starts running toward the truck, jumping up and down, flailing her hands and arms, and yelling, "Sheriff's looking for you! The sheriff's looking for you! The sheriff's looking for you! The sheriff!" And I was like, I said, "Mama, is she?" So evidently she thought I was in the car by myself. And we're thinking this because as she got closer, she seemed to look and notice that my mom was in, or someone was in the passenger seat. I don't know if she recognized it as a woman, or, I don't know what she actually saw, but you could tell that she seemed to kind of stop for a second, like, oh, she's not alone. So I can't act a complete nut like I want to act. You know what I mean? I had like almost like she had just a itty bitty moment of rational thinking. You know what I mean? And I said, "You got to be kidding me." I had already locked the doors. And I had already started the 911 phone call, and then I called our bond security service. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. So we literally just sat there, and I have a picture of her. I haven't posted it. I have a picture of her at our truck. And then it gets even worse because, so my mother, who normally would not have been at our house like this, she was at our house, and I was thankful because she was able to observe everything. Not some of it, everything. So we're sitting in the car waiting on the officers to arrive. The officer pulls up. He stays in his car. He kind of, pulls up on the side, so we're we're driver side to driver side, right? And we're discussing it. And guess what happens again? Because she runs off, mind you, she runs off when she realized that someone was in the car with me. After that kind of moment of, should I continue to be crazy or should I run off now? And that's literally how she looked. Like, should I continue to be crazy? Oh, wait. And then she ran off. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. This lady is absolutely loonball. So the officers arrive. And it was one officer at the time. There ultimately 3 responded. And while we were out there sitting with the officer, do you know, she came back out and she was doing the same exact thing. And he had to control her. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. So, oh boy. Then he directed us. He said, well, we're going to give you an escort. Because I said, well, we need an escort in. And my mom, she doesn't live with me. Her car is right here. She was about to get out. I would like an escort for my mom. And he didn't even inform me that he had others responding. I guess at this point, they just realized, okay, we're dealing with a fool. And so they just, were proactive in that regard. And I appreciate that. And 2 more officers showed up. They followed us as I drove to park. And then they escorted me and my son safely into the house. And the other officer, the first to respond, he escorted my mom safely to the house. And then you would think it was over. Because at that point, the officer who first responded, we had already, we had very short conversation. And he was like, TRO. I said, yep, TRO. And that was pretty much the gist of our conversation, okay? And so... that was Sunday. And Monday, remember, I think they were out of school or something like that. And I'm trying to remember because we ended up having to go downtown 3 times because we went down. No, I think they were in school, but Monday evening, I think that's what we did. We went downtown and thought that I could handle this at the magistrate's because in a lot of counties, you can do this at the magistrate's office. But here in Charlotte, you have to do it at the clerk of court where you file other complaints or whatever. So nonetheless, we couldn't do that because of course, they close here at noon. And that was well in the afternoon. It was I want to say it was evening. It was 6:37. So nonetheless, we were able to file that. But do you know, we did that on Wednesday. They had the half day. So I was like, this is an opportune time. We're going to bounce at 10:30, go on down, get all the paperwork we need, and file. Okay. Each time I use my bond service to come in, we have had one situation where he came out very oddly at the same time that we were coming in. So we stayed inside. My mom, she had the phone recording, and I had, because she followed us, trying to be safe during this time. And I called bond, and they monitored us until we got in the house after he stood outside for the strangest, oddest time. Yes, he did have his dogs with him. We were trying to be rational. Maybe he's just allowing the dogs to use the bathroom, but the front of our apartment building is not where they're permitted to allow their dogs to use the bathroom. I don't know if you're familiar with those apartment complexes that have the DNA pause. It's some program and methodology they have, same scientific forensic stuff where they can test the poop and identify the dog. And then when they identify the dog, of course, because they require their information to be on record with their lease, then they give a penalty to the owner, right? Because we have a dog park specific for that. And if their dog happens to poop elsewhere, they're required to use poop bags, the whole shebang. All right. And so for him to bring his dogs out the way that he did, it was more obvious that he was just trying to be an annoyance to us. You know what I mean? But nonetheless, we just stayed in the car. He didn't pursue us. He didn't say anything. He eventually went in. I said we waited about 15 minutes. And normally you all know that that's a little bit long for when you're letting a dog come out and poop. We all know that, okay? So, and he definitely saw us because he looked up. He established eye contact with us both. And I think he realized, okay, you're being watched, so I'm not going to do so much, but I'm going to make sure I stand here to try to be intimidating. Okay, so we filed the complaint Wednesday, submit that by dropping in the box or whatever. And today is Sunday, yesterday, Saturday. I've been, again, calling bond to go in and out, in and out. We haven't really heard anything. Everything's been, for the most part, quiet. I don't think they would have been served this fast, but I have expressed my concern to my mom that they would seek to act a fool once they were served. I mean, we can. That's not a stretch of the imagination based on their conduct thus far. But unfortunately, I'm already in a position where I have to file the TRO, and this is just par for the course, which is sickening, but it is. So it's like, okay, well, I have to prepare ourselves, and again, the bond security is already aware, and so are the police officers. So we come home yesterday, and we had been gone all day. We left out, I want to say around 10:30, hung out as we do normally on Saturdays, as I've already mentioned. And I mean, we go in, we stay out all day. So, we get a good dose of being out. And we came home, and the picture is what we came home to. And at first, because it looked like it had it looked like someone attempted to make it look as though there was nothing there. Because at first I was like, I'm tired. Maybe this, because it looked like a little film strip almost on the top of like a clear, or how it looks opaque. It looked opaque. And I was like, okay, no, I'm tripping. And I stuck my key in and realized that it was goo. And I was like, what? And even though I know that it's not rational that I would be evicted in that manner, because that's not a lawful manner to evict someone, I admittedly, because I'm just like, they can't be this crazy. I mean, I know they're crazy, but I'm just like, I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt to people who clearly don't even deserve or substantiate benefit of the doubt. But it's still, that's where my mind went first. I was like, okay, am I being evicted? And like, what? I'm confused. And because I was like, is this cement? Was it intended to be hard? And I'm like, fool, you're not being evicted. So, and how in the hell would this be a lawful eviction? But you know how I tell people all the time, people can do what they want to do. They can break the law. The law doesn't prevent, it doesn't physically prevent people from committing crimes. It enjoins them from committing crimes, but they can still commit the crime and then they are punished thereafter. Sometimes people aren't punished thereafter, but you see what I'm saying. So I'm like, okay. So I got to call the officers. So that's what I did. The lock did respond, thankfully. I did not touch the keypad or the smart lock, only with the key. I did push it back in, and like I said, it did respond, and we were able to get inside. And the officers, because it was late, it was like 10 last night, something like that. They took the call to have someone come out so they could make a report. But they had a lot of, Charlotte is experiencing a lot of unrest, and rightfully so, just like as other places around the nation, and especially with the release of crazy dude who killed George Floyd. So they're definitely protests, and they're definitely also the other issues of crime and gun violence here in Charlotte. So she called me back, I want to say like an hour and a half later, communications to advise that, they would come here today, if it was okay with me, if I felt safe. And they would, go ahead and make the report. So that's where we're at right now. There was no further issues last night. At least we didn't hear it. We eventually went to sleep, and of course my son slept with me. But this is stupid. This is beyond stupid. And there's no other, we can give it all the fancy words that mean stupid to it. But at the end of the day, this is just stupid. I haven't provoked anything to them. This situation has arisen from you having my child in your house and not providing me explanation of it. And that's it. And the only thing I didn't even move forward with criminal charges at that point. I just said, please leave me alone. And knew that at a point I had to get an officer involved to ask you to leave me alone. When normally, adult to adult, when you don't know me, I don't know you. Not really. You have my first name. I have dad's first name and daughter's first name, and I still don't know who the woman is. In fact, I had to file the complaint with his name and her listed as Jane Doe. This is stupid. So we know that it's racially motivated. These are those situations where it's easier for Black people to identify. And I'm not saying that some of you beautiful, supportive, ally, Caucasian people don't rock hard and don't see it immediately. It's just that we're so used to it, we know it when we see it. So there you have it. I will go live for the vaccine research. I may do it on Monday, y'all, because Sunday, this is my day to really relax, but I'm trying to catch up because of everything that has been happening. And I told you I was going to go live for the vaccine research part 2, and I will. So I'll do that tomorrow. It'll be most convenient because now I just want to rest my mind and rest my heart, rest my spirit. And because I know I have to, basically, I don't have to tell the story. I don't know. I may have to, because they'll have to put some context to, the whole thing anyway. And that's where we're at. Now, before this, and I know some of you are like, well, Tigress, you're so mindful. We would imagine that you would have had a security system before now. Well, they've got surveillance all over the place, and we have a 24-hour security. Now, we haven't had security here lately, which I found very, very odd. Very, very odd. Exceptionally odd. They used to circle about, I'd say, beginning at around 8 p.m. and then they just circle all night long. So I didn't really feel the need for additional security. But looks like that would have been very helpful and may have captured them on camera. So I hate we were not able to, capture them on camera. And of course, we know they'll use that in the court of law. But I think that we have, at the very least, established enough evidence to justify the civil no contact order. And so that's where I'm at. It's been real out here. It continues to be real. And they are being revealed left and right. So I ask that you all equally be safe out there. Thank you for the kind wishes to you all who have already expressed your concern about what me and my son have experienced. Even though I'm strong, I'm human, and that's my baby. So I appreciate your well wishes. And that's it. So I'm hoping that they will stand down. I don't know what their intentions are. But I know that the authorities who need to be aware are aware, and even more so than you all can imagine. Okay? All right, y'all have a good day.